Michael Vasquez in the studio in the house with us here to stop by and chat with us a bit, political commentator and analyst. And Michael, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Roger.
It was a pleasant surprise to have you pop in here.
Well, I wanted to see if I could come in because there's nothing better, especially at the end of the year, see old friends, wish you the best, because I love what you're doing. You do a great job every day.
Thank you.
And it felt better to say that in person
Well, thank
than
you.
on
It's
the
very
phone.
kind of you. Well, let's talk. I'm not shy on opinions.
No. Not at all.
Let's talk first of all about the economy here, because this has been a wacky couple of weeks. And last week in particular, it looks like the Dow's going to go in the tank or the whole stock market. Then all of a sudden it bounces back. It's like a pogo stick. And what do you make of this as we now start a new year?
Yeah, we were just watching this while you were on with the last caller, and we saw the market turn from positive, drop down minus 150, and then right now it's recovering and it's down about 75. It's amazing because what I see happening here is exactly what was predicted back in the early, like May or so. We're seeing traders taking people like Bill Maher and the other politicians and some of the politicos saying that they wanted to wreck the economy. They wanted a recession. Those were their words, because that would help their political ambitions against President Trump. And traders are taking them at their word. Nancy Pelosi's in. They're looking to reverse the tax cuts. And even Senator Kamala Harris said that she's in New Hampshire right now on her presidential run, and she's promising to take the tax cuts, reverse them all, raise everyone's taxes, raise the business taxes that have helped everyone create jobs, and instead they're going to pay poor people $250 a month to be poor. This, of course, will not help the economy. And that's why you're seeing traders, they're selling because they know with interest rates going up, they need to liquefy right now, be more in cash, and wait for the Fed to increase rates so they can buy more bonds. That's where we're seeing this. Matter of fact, when we come back first week, you're going to see that's going to be a down week with probably averages, I would say, of probably about 400 down on several of those days.
Wow.
It's what tends to happen historically in the markets. And I used to be a stockbroker, by the way. I've done it for like 7-10 years. So I'm familiar with these kind of trading patterns.
And it seems to me, this is what I brought out a while back, well, before the last federal rate increase,
Yeah.
a few days back. But, like the president, hate the president, ambivalent, whatever, he is a billionaire and has been a pretty successful business person for a long time.
Yeah.
So my question is, if he says keep the interest rates down because it fuels growth, I'm not sure why anybody sees. I don't see, now I'm obviously an amateur, I don't see this incredible potential of inflation. It just doesn't seem like the economy just was starting to really roll, and now it looks like every potential to put a stop to it is out there.
Well, it's the problem with the Fed always overreacts.
Yes.
Look at the crash back in 2000, and that was due to their lack of reaction. So the Fed either overreacts in not doing anything or doing way too much. And they've already planned out that they're going to keep doing interest rate increases. That wouldn't necessarily be so bad because there will eventually, 3.5%, 3.7% unemployment. You're going to see inflation eventually. But the thing that they're reacting to is that's assuming that the unemployment markets and the general economy continues to grow and improve. But if we have a Congress that's going to stagnate, which is what Nancy Pelosi and Senator Schumer have promised us already, that they're going to stagnate the entire Congress, nothing's going to be done. And we're not going to improve the economy. And they're looking to reverse the things that have helped our economy in the first place. Well, if you have that happening at the same time the Fed is aggressively increasing rates back to the historical norm, then you're looking at a disparity. That means you have a vacuum. You have a negative vacuum. That's going to hurt the stock market, which means, and people say, well, that's only affect rich people. Just realize that we're talking about retirement funds, IRAs, mutual funds. The investment portfolios of average middle class workers are hit the hardest, not the rich who are well diversified, owning various asset classes, and they don't have to worry about it. No, it's the middle class that gets hurt. Mm-hmm. And when you couple that with, say, things like in New York State, where we have the highest taxes, we have an exodus of people, the highest in the nation, and we're looking at an economy that's already been bad, we have massive debt at a state level, and that's increasing, and you're spending more on a governmental level in an economy that's looking to stagnate, if not depress, no one's going to win here. And how they think this is going to help them politically, I don't know, but that's the agenda that's been announced.
Well, that's the other part, is that for many, even a small increase in take-home pay over the last year has occurred for many as a paycheck because of reduction in taxes. If you have even a morsel of money saved for your 401k or IRA or whatever, most likely it has gone up, maybe even substantially. Unemployment rate is reasonably low. The gross national product and more seem to be on the rise or holding steady. So I guess my question is, why do you want to, I mean, again, you're dealing with somebody trying to lead the way who is a businessman, has been successful. Why do you want to abort that and change it? I guess as an average person, I'm saying, well, if you want to do this, how are you going to make my life better? And
well, they're not looking to make anyone's life better. This is purely politics. And if anyone wants to see how this works, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS.gov, it's government records. They look at the unemployment. There's one that's very important, tells you about the future of the economy. It's on chart A-8. And what that is the self-employment number. It's the number of small businesses being created. For 8 years under President Obama, it factually just decreased. We lost about 2 million. And we were averaging just under about 7.5 million new businesses per month. We're now at about 8.5 to 9. We've increased by 1 million. That's where all these new jobs came from. Small businesses able to make that difference because of the reducing the corporate tax rate and personal. You're able to go out, make a business, and actually hopefully be able to turn a profit. If we increase those rates, you're going to see that number shrink again. And once that shrinks, you're going to see a major increase in the unemployment levels and the number of people who are receiving money from the government. Right now, it's about 165 million people are receiving some form of government aid. That's stagnated. That number actually flatlined. It used to be increasing substantially for the last decade, and now it's been relatively flat. When we start seeing those small businesses close, those people have to go and get government aid as they look for a new job, as fewer jobs are going to be available. You're going to see unemployment increase. You're going to see government aid increase. And I suppose the idea is, since people are going to be more dependent on the government, and things like $250 a month because you're poor becomes more attractive since you don't have other job options, people are going to be dependent on that political party that's promising all these free things, which are actually negatively hurting them. And it's part of the agenda we see for 2019, and that's why I'm so worried about New York State. People like to tell me that, and I've heard some of the callers recently, the last couple of days, talking about the living wage or minimum wage, which are not the same thing. And they think this money disappears out of nowhere. And the problem is, as we keep trying to do these things that are supposed to make us feel good, and it's feeling-based, when we look at the actual economics of it, we're only hurting ourselves. You know, Matt was talking, former Mayor Matt Ryan was talking about fracking and how it's such a wonderful thing. What he forgets to mention is fracking started in 1948 in the United States. It's currently being done in 28 states throughout the United States right now. The disasters that he loves to speak about and say we're so afraid of don't exist. They haven't happened anywhere in the entire country for decades. Only thing that's happened is New York lost the revenue stream that was available to us. We lost the opportunity for jobs. And now we're hearing Governor Cuomo talk about in 2019, he's going to push through this agenda where he's saying, hey, we're going to just take away all the land rights. That's one of his proposals. Anything under 6 feet become the land rights of the state so that he can then generate income to help pay for things like Medicare for all that no one really wants because it doesn't work. Again, these aren't helping anyone. This is taking money out of the individuals, giving it to the government. And unless you think government is better at spending your money than you are, if you don't agree with that mindset, well, the answer is get out of New York State. Again, this is a vortex that we've been going on for 8 years now, counting. We're now in an opportunity to just hyperextend that because we have all of state government is under one party, and that party for the last years has economically destroyed our nation, our state, and now they're looking to go and kick it into hyperdrive. I'm really worried. We've lost 1.2 plus million people in 8 years. We're leading the nation in people leaving. We're going to lose 2 members of Congress minimum on this. Guess what? I expect we're going to actually see 1.5, 1.6 million people leave before 2020. We are in a bad situation. We need to be aware of not just the feel about what feels good, but what is actually good for the people.
Michael Vasquez in studio with us here on WNBF. We have about another 5 minutes here before our news break, and I wanted to bring up a topic also about the immigration situation and the concern now over just the recent death of the 8-year-old boy from Guatemala, another death before that. My major concern, well, there are a lot of concerns. I don't want anybody to pass away, certainly coming into our country, but what seems to get lost is that, we have this situation, and now it looks to me like no matter what we do, if anybody gets sick and passes away while they're in custody, and just by figures, you're going to have 8-year-old kids that do get sick and pass away in the bed. 8 minutes from a hospital. It could happen. I don't know the situation here, but now we're on what people are going to try to do is put us on the hook for every well-being of every person that comes across illegally to start. Even if they apply for asylum and come in at that point, I understand them doing that. But there's not a whole lot of a win situation for us trying to take care of these people, at least in some fashion, when they have come in at least to start before they ask for asylum illegally. Well,
the problem is, again, we're doing this how it feels. We're looking at individuals, some extremists, and literally the fringe of the Democratic Party. I wouldn't call them Democrats, and they don't call themselves Democrats. They call themselves progressives. Have put up this idea that, because it sounds like a great idea. It feels nice to say that there are no borders and everyone should be able to come into America. That's not true. No nation believes in that. That's why we all have borders. And when they say these things and they encourage people saying, we want to give a path to citizenship, which Nancy Pelosi, incoming Congressman Anthony Brindisi, they're looking to create this path to citizenship, open our borders, allow anyone to come in. Well, that's when you get to see these treks where these people are traveling 2,400 miles into our nation with kids, where they have no guarantee of being able to get into our country. They have no guarantee of being able to feed these kids. They have no guarantee of being able to give them shelter. They have no guarantee of jobs. Even if they got into the nation, they don't have these guarantees. And they're taking these kids. Imagine, many people have enough trouble just taking a kid to the store and back. Imagine you're taking the kid 2,400 miles through countries they don't know with all of the negative elements that exist there. Kids are coming into our nation and they're coming to the border. They're malnourished. They're exposed to various diseases and things like the flu that may affect them negatively. They're dehydrated, and then once they cross our border illegally, we catch them. We try and take care of them. Very often, it's too late.
It's our fault.
Yeah, so it's not our fault. It's literally the fault of the people who decided to take a kid on a 2,400-mile trek without having the wherewithal to think of, hey, let's give that kid some food, some shelter, some clothing, and have a plan to take care of them.
And how'd they get that far without some help?
Well, you have to wonder, because the closest thing, if they were really looking for asylum, they could have gone from Guatemala. It's actually 1,000 miles shorter to go into Texas. There's the port in Texas is actually the closest spot in the United States where they could have gone in and asked for asylum. They could have saved 1,000 miles. Why did they go to California instead? Why did they say to Mexico, no, we don't accept asylum, and kept going to the United States? Because it's not about asylum. It's about taking advantage of the promises made by certain progressives, which negatively impact our nation, I understand. It's an absolutely small percentage of people who are doing the bad thing, but that's still unacceptable. It's a number that we don't have to have here. It's a pressure on our country we don't need. It's a negative impression and endangerment of children that shouldn't ever exist. These are the problems that we're looking at in 2019 and 2020. And if we're only listening to, how does that make us feel? What does that headline say in this onslaught to say, progressives conservatives are evil or negative. I've even heard people say we're Nazis just because we believe in the rule of law. If that's what you're looking at, then going forward, we're not going to see positive things come out of that because that's emotion-based, and emotions never lead to good outcomes, economically or politically, ever.
Michael, thank you for stopping in. I want to wish you a happy 2019. Always good to talk to you.
I always enjoy it, and for all the nonprofits that I work with, for myself personally, I want to wish you a great New Year's to you and, of course, everyone who's listening. And I'm looking forward to a very interesting 2019.
The challenges of 2019 on the way, huh?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's 10:58 on WNBF. We'll be switching to news.